All right, these are my first impressions of the DJI Osmo Pocket 4 Pro. I bought this because I knew that I wanted a camera gimbal again, and I had the choice between this and the Luna Ultra. Obviously, the Luna Ultra would have been much easier to purchase, but I went with the Osmo Pocket 3 because it seems like it's more of a professional tool. And after having it in my hands for a little bit, I absolutely feel that way. I've had this for less than a day, or I just took it out of the package yesterday, which I'll show you the unboxing here in a second. I am a sucker for new camera gear. So I went to eBay and I bought this. In addition to the Osmo Pocket 4P, I ordered a few things. Of course, I got a variable ND filter. Man, I can't believe all that stuff fits inside this tiny bag. So I had the Osmo Pocket 3 and I used that thing for a couple of years on tons of content. I sold it to one of my clients so that he can film his own client or his own footage when he's on the road. And I gotta say, this case actually feels smaller than the Osmo Pocket 3 case. Oh man, look at that. You know, this DJI Mic Mini really is pretty mini. I'm just a little upset that it doesn't charge with the USB-C, that it needs a separate charger. I haven't seen a lot of good things about this little fill light, and it really is tiny. Oh my god, look at that. Look at that. I gotta say, it feels a lot heavier than the Osmo Pocket 3 just based off of memory. You know what, let's go ahead and open this small rig stand and see if it's strong enough to hold it up by itself. Man, after shooting full frame for a year straight, I gotta say it's a little strange, like using a pocket camera again. But this feels like a professional tool. Holy shit, it actually works. So I can set it up, you know, on a table using the small rig little attachment there. I was torn between the Luna Ultra and the Osmo Pocket 4P. Ultimately, I feel like the Luna Ultra has better features, easier ND filters, a better screen solution. This seems a little, I don't know, doesn't seem as legit. However, I am intimately familiar with the way that the DJI Osmo Pocket 3 works. I use it to film tons of content, and it's for that reason alone I opted to stick with DJI so that I don't have to relearn how to use an entirely different system. Okay, moment of truth. Oh shit. Well, I guess I better scan and download this app, but in the meantime, I'll just finish unboxing the rest of the stuff that I have. So we got this little adapter. It's not a battery handle, it's an adapter. I'll probably never use this since I purchased the small rig, right? Which is just gonna live on there full time now. It actually works pretty well as a pretty solid tripod on the table. I already showed you the little dinky remote control. Let's open up the DJI Mic Mini, or Mic 2 Mini. I'm not even sure what version it's on. I just know I had the DJI Mic 2 back when I had the Osmo Pocket 3, and that was fantastic. And I will say, by comparison, this thing is much, much smaller. And you know what? I don't know if I'm going to use that little pocket clip that comes in there. I think I just would rather opt for using this little magnet, you know, this little magnet clip, and just magnetize it underneath my shirt. Right, so let's just put that on there. Let's see how easy it is. Dude, that easy. Of course, we got the mini tripod. The little tripod, it still works with even with the small rig Arca Swiss adapter. You know, I use Arca Swiss adapters everywhere, so I'm just gonna leave that bad boy on there. Pretty low profile. Internal storage, nearly 100 gigabytes. That's really impressive. So let's go ahead and open up this VND too. You know, why not just open up all the goodies? Got the VND. I'm wondering if I can just leave this on there full time and just leave it on the one stop for shooting like interior glasswork, which is what I usually shoot. And then just having the ability to turn that to a 5-stop if I ever need to go outside. I'm gonna keep it in auto ISO regardless. The point of these pocket cameras is to set it and forget it. All right. So now I got tracking enabled. Oh, cool. I can adjust exposure while I'm filming. So now I got the tracking enabled on the lens of my ZV-E10 Mark II right there. All right, so now I have the tracking enabled on the 60mm lens. I'm standing pretty far back. The lighting's probably horrible to be recording this, but this is pretty sweet that you can track objects and keep them in frame. Let's check this guy. Okay, so now I'm tracking the camera again, but this time with the fill light. And as you can see, it's actually making a difference. Lighting up that camera pretty nice. Yeah, this might be good for vlogs or product shots. In less than a half hour of runtime, I'm able to figure this camera out just by watching a few tutorials. I got my settings dialed in. I got my VND. In fact, I got my VND on right now. And I often wondered if I can just leave it on full time and still be able to film indoors. So I'm just going to slowly darken my key light over here. And even with the VND on my little screen, the image still looks pretty good. So I think I can just go ahead and leave that on there because most of the time when I film indoors, there's adequate lighting. This tracking seems to work way better. The zoom feature seems to be pretty good. I can click it once to zoom to 6 or click and hold that button to essentially zoom in slow. And when I was driving to Steamboat Springs today, there was a forest fire and I was able to get some close-up shots of the airplanes and of the smoke from a far distance and some firefighters from a far distance. And I know I can do that on my iPhone 17 Pro, but honestly, I have way more fun using this. So I'm just using the inbuilt mics. This is the first time that I'm using my VNDs. I have it set to the highest level. So I'm just up here at nearly the summit of Rabbiter's Pass. And when I drove up here, I noticed that there was some smoke in the air. And I didn't realize how close it was. I could actually see it from here. I'm watching these planes and helicopters go by, obviously dropping water. Not sure if there's any roads back there. Let me just show you. Let me turn you around. So right over there. I don't know if you can see that smoke plume. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom you in 12 times. That is crazy. I just tried the slow-mo for the first time, and I like it because you can just take a small 2-second clip and it slows it way down. So I'm gonna go ahead and try to capture one of these cars coming down the highway. You'll see what I mean. I saw other photographers out there with their giant lenses, and I have one of those. So I got my Lumix S9 right there and a big lens on there. And usually when I'm on the road, I don't like to pull that camera out of my bag because it's kind of huge, it's kind of bulky. It obviously has a far better image quality, and the MP4 Lite is absolutely fantastic. But one thing that I don't like about it is that I can't really use it while I'm driving. Now, I don't recommend that you do that, but with only a half hour of runtime or less, I was able to pull the Osmo Pocket 4 out and I was able to record some shots while driving. And the follow mode is just intuitive. I bought this to create content around the glazing industry. And I even thought about using this as my podcast camera because of the tracking feature, which is enabled right now, which kind of just takes the pressure off of my framing. Now, is it perfect? No, but as I move the camera around or as I move my head around, it doesn't seem as nearly as jerky as the Osmo Pocket 3 was. So the Osmo Pocket 3, that's it for me. I paid a pretty penny for it, and I am not regretting my decision. So stay tuned, my glazing or construction folks. My partner Rodney, I sold my Osmo Pocket 3 to, and he just posted a video today. Pretty cool content, and a lot of the content that he makes is on the Osmo Pocket 3. And I bought this for the act of making content to be a little bit easier, especially with these cool slow motion modes. So one thing about the Lumix S9 is, yes, it has the MP4 Lite, but it doesn't have MP4 Lite in 60 frames per second. So all of my videos, I actually switched over to 30 frames per second, because that's the only way that the MP4 Lite can be recorded on the S9. Otherwise, traditionally, I prefer to record my talking head in 24 and my slow-mo in 60. And then when I slow that 60 down to a 24p timeline, I just think that the slow motion looks really good. It just doesn't quite hit the same when you only slow it down halfway, and it still looks okay. Probably nobody cares except for me, but I greatly prefer the way that 60p looks on a 24p timeline. But with this one, it has a dedicated slow-mo mode, which just records it and gives you playback in slow-mo, which is pretty fantastic. So then if you know you're going to do slow-mo, you can just go into that mode and you don't have to slow it down post. So it's all about making things quick and easy. I haven't done anything to the color profiles in this camera. This is straight out of box. Obviously I got a nice light in front of me, but I think that this footage looks fantastic. And just one more time, you can zoom in and look at my mocos with just the click of a button. Yeah, so long story short, I did have buyer's remorse when I bought this for nearly, I can't say it out loud, nearly $1,300 on eBay. But after having only used it for less than a half hour, I can confidently say that I'm going to use the crap out of this camera for the purpose of content creation.